Ms. Jenny Johnson, Chief Executive Officer of Franklin Templeton. Please give them an applause.
All right, hello, FinTech Week. I'm Yvonne. Thank you so much for joining us, and I want to thank Jenny for joining us here. This is our second round already today. We did a panel earlier this morning at the Hong Kong Exchange, so we'll try to at least bring a snippet of what we discussed today. But it really is such a great journey and story for Franklin Templeton that, you know, you started this, gosh, how many years ago when you were...
Which part? Joining the company?
Joining the company, and then this whole evolution, right? When you didn't really have a tech background per se, but then you decided to be the Chief Information Officer at the time.
Well, because I'm so old, I started out where they created this little group called the e-business group, and anything that touched the internet was under me. And I could not get the marketing department to produce any material for the website because they thought it was a waste of time. So that's how long I've been doing it. So I started doing that, and then I was advised that all executives in the future will need a tech background. That'll be a huge advantage. And I ended up taking over the technology group, and I just had to spend so much time really just trying to understand it and get into the details of it. And I have to say, as a CEO today, that was probably some of the best advice I ever got.
What did you see back then that maybe others didn't see?
So, look, I always say to people, and I say to CEOs, don't let the tech guys confuse you. All they do is move data from here to here, and every once in a while add another piece of data, right? But what are the problems in technology? The problems are the latency of data. So this is, and most financial services companies run batch processing, which means the data can get stale. And so if you pull the data at the wrong time, it may be aged data. So that's all, one, it's really relevant to why blockchain is so important, but two, those are the biggest problems, the integration of systems, making sure that you know where the right source of truth of data is. And so if I say that, you know, what was the thing I learned? We created a data group that was like a data librarian to tell you if you were looking for a certain piece of data, it's defined by this, and it's going to be updated at this time, and this is the source system. And I think what's exciting about the technologies of the future is you actually don't have to worry quite as much about that.
Yeah, and I think when people think about the technological evolution of the financial service industry, I think your firm really is front and center of all that and what you saw. You've been using, you said, machine learning for a decade
over
now?
A decade, yeah.
Tell us a bit more about the evolution of that, and how do you see, where do you see the sort of automation the most prevalent within the firm now?
Yeah, I mean, I think any, it's funny because some people call AI machine learning, including in it or not, but most financial services firms had some sort of machine learning, right? It was predictive based on, what are these patterns of data? I actually started out my career running a credit card division, and this was in the 1980s and 90s, and that was where I really learned how predictive looking at data is. So that's where I became passionate about machine learning. And I shared at another panel this morning that we started, I used to do consumer lending, so we'd lend auto loans. We'd lend so people could buy auto loans. And you looked at just 6 pieces of data. What was a person's credit score? How long they worked? What was the payment to income? What was the down payment? What was the value of the car? These were very predictive. How long they lived at the residence? How long they were at the job? And then when we acquired a company that was doing peer-to-peer purchasing of loans. So loans were like Lending Club, where people put in pools of money and it was lent out. They were sort of acting as banks.
Yeah.
And you had to figure out which loans you wanted to buy. And what they would do is they'd open up the pool of loans for 90 minutes and hedge funds would jump in and you would tag your loans. And so you had to be really good at understanding what were the right drivers for the best loans. And that's where we started to understand micro signals, which I think is really important for how investments and lending are going to be done in the future. So we saw things like if you didn't capitalize the name of your employer and 3 other micro signals existed, you had a 25% chance of higher chances of losses on that loan. Why is that important? Because if you're still lending the old way, which has worked for decades for banks,
Yeah.
and now somebody comes in and starts to pull out the cream of the crop there because they're looking at microsignals, then you're going to suddenly find yourself in big trouble.
Can you give us some examples just now within the firm on how you're leveraging these sort of emerging technologies, whether it's AI, whether it's blockchain, data analytics, to really transform the products and services that you guys have?
So let me talk about blockchain, because I am very fired up by the opportunities. I think AI gets a lot of coverage, and blockchain is still a bit of, you either believe it or you don't, and it's all that crypto thing, and I think that misses a bit of the story. So as I mentioned, the thing with the challenge in technology is this managing the data.
Yeah.
What blockchain does is it's basically a technology that does three things really well. It has an immutable source of truth. So if I own a token, I have all rights to that token. It has the ability to execute a smart contract, so whatever those rights are, they get programmed in. So if I'm doing a foreign exchange contract with somebody, and if certain triggers hit, I can execute, the smart contract will execute itself and go collect the collateral without anybody being involved. And then finally, it has a payment mechanism. So I can pay immediately when that transaction happens. If you look at the world today, we have all these intermediaries. Banks are big intermediaries. If Franklin Templeton is going to do a foreign exchange contract with somebody else, we'll go to HSBC and say, you're going to be our counterparty, and you go deal with the other, collecting the money from the other customer. If you have what's called atomic settlement, where it settles immediately, you actually don't need that intermediary. So we began our journey in blockchain in 2018. Today, we are the only firm running a tokenized money market fund that's natively on the public blockchain.
Okay.
Others are digital twins, meaning they're shadowed on the blockchain. And so that enables us to do some really interesting things. One is we pay out interest every day.
Okay.
We calculate interest every second. Impossible to do in the old kind of rails of the system. If you own our money market fund for 4 hours, 32 minutes, and 22 seconds, you'll get paid for that time. So intraday payments. The cost of it's dramatically less expensive because there's not the reconciliation, all these other things you have to do in the way the old system runs. And so our traditional money market fund, to open an account, you have to start with $500. On our blockchain money market fund, we made the limit $20.
Huh.
So you can have a lot more people can start, from a financial inclusion, are going to be able to leverage these technologies. We operate nodes on, for anybody who knows, this is a young crowd, they'll understand, nodes on 13 different layer 1 and layer 2 blockchains. And so we are part of the system there, and we are big believers. We also provide advice, investment advice, model portfolios, a fintech or a venture fund. So we're big on the blockchain space and really excited about tokenization of non-traditional assets as well as traditional assets.
You mentioned before that AI, blockchain are probably the biggest disruptors to any industry. How do we balance between the opportunities and maybe the threats of this sort of emerging technology?
Look, I've always said you can't feel threatened by technology. Right? It's going to happen. Water runs down a mountain no matter what. As long as there's enough gravity there, it's going to keep going. It'll find its way down. And so rather than being afraid, you have to embrace it. And you have to embrace it and be okay with knowing that you're going to hit some dead ends. You're going to have some failings that don't work. Because if you're afraid of failure, you're never going to experiment. Now, that's what we should do. But the reality is the biggest challenge in technology is change management. People don't like to change what they do. They don't want to invest the time to learn something new. And so there'll be a natural inertia within a company where you won't be able to get people to move quickly enough. That's where startups often have an advantage. They don't have the customer relationships, but they often have the talent in the firm that are pushing change.
Yeah. There's been so much talk. I mean, I got to ask you about what people are saying about this whole AI wave that we're seeing, right? Is it a bubble? Is it not? When you talk about the hundreds of billions of dollars that have been thrown into spending now from some of these tech firms, how do you decipher whether it's a bubble or not?
So I think you have to separate kind of what we're talking about with the bubble. Right now, the only winners from an investment standpoint on AI have been the picks and shovels. It's been the chips, and it's been the cloud service providers, right? So those are the winners. The next phase, people say it's going to be about data center and energy. Again, those are all infrastructure picks and shovels. The reason you don't see it, and the reason the rest of the market hasn't had those huge multiples, is most companies haven't figured out how to use AI in such a way that it expands their margins.
The application.
Right.
Okay.
And what I think happens is you'll start to see the companies that get it right take off, because the technology, in my experience of leveraging technology, if you think about how quickly the internet has come along, this is so much faster. I mean, it is the pace of improvement in AI models and its capabilities is so fast that if you're a company who gets it right, you're going to leave your competitors behind. So I don't think we see any of that part built into the multiples in companies. Isn't a video overpriced? Is a Google Cloud over? That's harder. I do think that this is so big. I mean, I play with a lot of different AI tools, and I'm astonished by the evolution of these things.
What surprised you the most so far?
I think what surprises me is that. So I'll just give some examples of some of the tools I play with.
Sure.
I was trying to help my son by create a little documentary. Okay. So one is I thought, well, I got to write a script. So I used Perplexity. I went to Perplexity. I said, write me a 10-minute documentary on the history of rum. He's a rum distiller. So boom, it gives me a script and it gives me ideas. Then I go and I want to buy some images. But then I look and I go, boy, these images are expensive. So I end up just saying, create images of ships circa 1700 in the Caribbean. Boom, I suddenly get great images. Then I start using Google's Cloud or Google's video, and I start generating videos that describe it. So it's just incredibly engaging. And then I thought, well, I need music. So then I go to Synovus Music, and it generates instrumental Caribbean music, none of which I have to pay licensing fees on.
Yeah.
And I've just generated a whole documentary in a really short amount of time.
It's amazing.
And then the breakthroughs that you're now seeing on 3D in AI is really interesting. And it's going to make things like gaming so much faster to be able to roll out. So I talked to somebody whose son had just started a company, and he said, it's 2 people, they've rolled it out, they're already earning revenues, and he said 2 years ago that would have been 40 people in 2 years to build, and he did it in 4 months. So again, it's using those tools, and the pace of how these tools are getting better and better is amazing. And then you can build codes, applications so quickly and so good. I was talking to someone today at lunch, and they were in China talking about, all right, build a wealth channel interface application. And they said, in 4 minutes, this application gets coded, and they looked at it, and the guy said, I can't imagine my programmers doing it this quickly, and even being this good. Not just quickly, but even being this good at the output.
How do you compare the two, the US and China maybe in this whole AI development?
It's hard to know sort of where, I look at these things and think, if you talk to our emerging market team, they'd probably say China's ahead on things like EV batteries, potentially in robotics. If you talk to people in Silicon Valley, they'll say, oh, we're definitely ahead in AI and robotics, right? And so it's hard to know because you don't have the head-to-head comparison.
Yeah.
There's tremendous amount of innovation going on in both countries, and I think that there is a tremendous top-down push in both countries to create innovation. I think we're going to see tremendous innovation on both, and I don't think it matters who's winning each spot right now, because this is one of those games where it's going to constantly be people improving whatever they have.
And is regulation catching up at all to the innovation that you're seeing?
Listen, I do not envy regulators right now, because the hard part about being a regulator is you're never a hero for writing great regulation, but you're in trouble if you don't get it right? So you almost only have downside. And so I think that a lot of the regulators are trying to, and Hong Kong, particularly in blockchain, to their credit, has been very constructive and helpful. It was difficult in the US for a while, and so you had to find jurisdictions that were friendly, and Hong Kong was really constructive with the regulators. But I think where regulation's going to go right now is it's going to have to be almost more guiding principles around data privacy,
Yeah.
transparency around certain things, client information, treating the client right from a fiduciary standpoint, because they're not going to be able to regulate hard and fast rules in a time where things are moving so quickly.
Okay. I was going to ask you about how do you balance up the innovation with the data security and the like as well. I will talk about your partnerships. You've had a few. I think you worked with banks, you worked with Binance as well,
Yep.
which is kind of a non-traditional sort of partner, I think. Why these partnerships? And kind of tell us a bit more about the collaborations that you're doing now.
Yeah, so we've always, so Franklin Templeton, for those who don't know, we're a $1.7 trillion asset manager. We have probably one of the broadest breadth of capability. Many of you would know us for our emerging market and our kind of equity side, but we have 270 billion in alternatives, and we do fixed income equities, all types. We were always on our wealth channel. We always were sold through financial advisors and had partnerships with banks. So that's pretty much our model. Binance was something different in that, in the case of Binance, they're interested in leveraging our tokenized money market fund. We're integrating with stable coins. So if you think about this, you can earn a 4% return holding it in a money market fund. Because it's natively on chain, it's 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So if on a Saturday you want to move, because you're going to do a transaction with your stable coin, you'll be able to move from your money market fund, which has been earning you interest up to that second, into a stable coin to do a transaction. So that's something we've been building, and for hedge funds who want to use collateral, they like to use collateral where they earn money. So that was one. But number two, a lot of these crypto exchanges are looking to bring traditional investment products to their clients. So Binance, I think, has 270 million wallets, and they would like to be able to offer some of the traditional products. Because we built this capability with our money market fund, the shareholder record keeping, we'll be able to tokenize things like ETFs and traditional products and bring them onto these crypto platforms.
How receptive are your clients now in the whole digital assets and these products that you're offering?
It's a great question. I got to tell you, if you had talked to the traditional, I've been attending crypto conferences for the last 5 or 6 years, and I was always amazed at how you had the crypto world and the traditional finance world, and they were massive, and they really didn't overlap. They were sort of two parallel lines going. Suddenly, what has happened is I think that the traditional world is kind of waking up and saying, wait a second, these crypto exchanges that used to do this crypto stuff that we didn't believe in are starting to enter our world. You hear, I think it's either Binance or OKX, who has tokenized 80 stocks. So they're not natively issued on chain, but they're holding the inventory. So now you can trade 24/7. So as they start to bring traditional products, then you can imagine that the other side saying, wait a second, we need to have a wallet infrastructure because our clients are demanding, they have interest in crypto. We have to have the capability of handling these. So we're having, because we've built the wallet infrastructure, we're having conversations that we weren't having a year ago.
Yeah.
In almost every meeting it comes up, tell me what you're doing in digital assets, and can we learn more? Because we have a whole training session on that.
How are they viewing something like crypto? I think I spoke with some panelists recently. They're saying, I think for Gen Z, I think Bitcoin is like the gold for them.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you see institutional, traditional investors looking at this asset class now?
So with respect to Bitcoin, I always say, like, Bitcoin is an asset in itself. It's a bit like religion. You either believe it or you don't, right? And so there's a lot of believers, and I can give you arguments as to why there's some amount of floor, but that's different than the technology that's going to enable certain things. So a couple of real use cases, because I tell my equity team, you need to pay attention with what's going on in the crypto world, because disruption isn't just competitors that are in their existing business, it's competitors coming in from the crypto world. So a couple of cool use cases. So Louis Vuitton puts in a NFT in their purses so that you can validate that it's a legitimate purse, and they're opening up this platform for other luxury brands. Yeah. You have a company, there's a company called Tether TV, not great example of it, or not a great execution, but they want to be the fastest streaming service. So when you're watching their content, you're agreeing to let them cache content on your device. So then if Yvonne wants to watch it, it just has to jump from my device to her device, and then they pay you to watch that. There's an internet company that has a 2-year waiting list where they measure the excess capacity on your from your internet service provider, and they resell it and they pay you for it. So these are threatening to existing providers, and it's merely because the technology enables them to do that. So I think the key is, and believe me, there are going to be so many blowups in the crypto world. I mean, there are so many business models that you just go, okay, in the end, nobody's getting value out of that. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
But that does not mean that you should dismiss what is there, because also I think the next big companies that come out are going to come out from that space, along with the AI companies.
Yeah. Jenny, you're here till Wednesday. I know you're going to come on our show tomorrow from the Hong Kong MA event, but I believe you have an announcement that you're going to be making.
I do, but I can't announce it.
You can't announce it quite yet, but can you give us a bit of a glimpse, or at least a tease, on what's to come?
Well, we're really excited about the money market we have, and we're finding demand in a lot of jurisdictions, and so that's my tease.
Okay. The fact that you're announcing it here, I think, yeah. Maybe there's something there. Jenny, it is always great to have you back here in Hong Kong. Thank you. Jenny Johnson there.
Thank you.
From Templeton. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah.